Direct from the Six, world-renowned, Canada's largest city, with Canada's biggest thinkers, visionaries, and hustlers. This is Startup Talk, featuring the founders, funders, innovators, and community leaders who've led Canada's startup ecosystem right here in Toronto. You'll hear the challenges, the failures, the successes. Toronto's Startup Podcast gives you the full story direct from the entrepreneurs and influencers who've made a difference. Now, the host of Startup Talk, the founder of TorontoStarts, the Startup Coach.
How do you see AI transforming pet care over the next decade?
So I think AI is eating the world. I think AI at the moment is, it has proven itself to be extremely helpful in a lot of industries across a lot of sectors in a very short period of time. Whereas, when we talk about sort of Web 1, it took some time for us to realize the power of Web 1. It was really truly towards the end of Web 2 where we started to kind of realize that, the Googles and the Meta and the Amazons and like all of these platform players, Web 2 is owned by 10 companies, where Web 3 obviously is going to be owned by people like you and me, right? It's going to be sort of owned by everybody. And it's hard to argue that now when you see OpenAI and a couple of companies really dominating and becoming very big, achieving valuations that took Google 20 years to achieve, right? But in a period of 6 years, right? So, specifically in the pet care space, I think we're, again, 10, 15 years behind in terms of AI. There are a few guys that are sort of building some cool stuff, but there is nothing that is transformative yet, okay? Nothing that I've come across that is remarkable, right? And including my own products, right? I think what we have is good and it will, be improved over time. And so what I think is going to happen, and the way I view it is, there is a supply and demand issue where the supply is here of veterinary professionals and the demand is up here, right? And so to bridge that gap between the pet owner that needs help with whatever health issue they may have and the availability of a doctor in veterinary medicine or a technician is, it depends on which country you're talking about. But broadly speaking, globally speaking, it is a problem, right? And so I think what's going to happen is you're going to need tools in the toolbox that helps to streamline the work of a professional in the industry. And I think, our kind of wearable can do a lot of things, like as the pet kind of comes in to the clinic, through the PIM system, the sort of patient management system, that data could have been pulled in straight away as the vet kind of, as the person walks to the room with the vet, everything is up on the screen. They already have real-time health markers. Like a vet gets in average 5 minutes to diagnose a pet. And sadly, quite often, due to time constraint, and they're asking the pet owner, have you seen this? Have you seen that? What really happened? It's trying to triangulate information. And I think what we can do is we can help to give that information a lot faster. And also we can help with, pets that don't need to go to the vet. Things can happen and the help can happen from the comfort of one's home, right? And it could be a televet instead, or it could be a technician, it could be someone else, right? And so I think AI is going to help to bridge the gap at home and in clinic, in hospital experience, and make sure that pets that are in really dire need goes in, and pets that can be helped from the comfort of one's home, that can happen from home. There's going to be a lot of ways to diagnose and give next step recommendation and kind of educate the pet owner on what they can do themselves. But also I think in a similar way, there's going to be a lot of tech that's going to help the professional side to get a second opinion really fast. Instead of going out asking another busy colleague in the clinic, they're going to be able to kind of ask the AI, like, here's the data, what's your take on it? And it's like, okay, well, it's the same as I thought. Okay, great. So now I got a second opinion. I feel a little bit more comfortable with this diagnosis I'm going to give the pet owner. And I think, there's going to be a lot of ways to streamline saving time and giving them the ability to actually do more. And this will then help to bring down this gap in supply and demand, right? The current demand in the US market is like, it's going to take 30 years to educate enough vets to meet that demand, right? So that's just not going to be the only solution. That's part of the solution, but I think tech and AI is really going to help to drive that other mismatch in supply and demand. And I think, we play a little role in that. I think our group can play a larger role in it in due course. But I think there's a lot of other really cool pet tech companies out there that are springing up. And if there's any investors out there listening to this, look at pet care and pet tech companies and invest in them. If the ecosystem is not there for the pet tech entrepreneurs, we're not going to be able to build these great companies that's going to help the pets and the pet owners and the pet professionals. So, yeah.
Yeah, you hit a nail on the head with I'm going to say data enrichment, because I look at it from a business point of view. And when, say, some data comes in as a lead, we want to enrich that lead. We want to find out more about that company, what market they're in, how big they are, how many employees they are, what people are saying about them, what the reviews are. So, we build tools to go out and do that and based on those things, put some proposals and packages together and some sales scripts, and then put that in front of a salesperson before the meeting. So now they're fully prepped and they don't have to do that work. They do the review, they do this and say, okay, now I'm ready to have this focus meeting. I have a bunch of options. I'm pre-prepped. Similar with the vet is that exactly. We'll go and get this data. We know why the pet's coming in. And we have all this data from these devices. We have our AI database. It goes through and says, okay, the pet's this age. It's about this time. You should be checking for these things based on this, and give that report to the vet so they have that information ready to go ahead of time. And that just changes the game. Like, I just wanted to clarify for people who may not have thought through that process, where that kind of stuff changes the game. So the other thing I see from your point of view, a couple of plays, like the data play, because a lot of times maybe we don't know what the average steps or activity level or whatever of this animal should be in a 24-hour period. But as soon as we have thousands of animals and we're tracking the data and we're getting this, we can now detect anomalies and do things differently than we would have been able to before.
Right. Yeah. I mean, two great observations there by you. I think, data is the foundation for any AI to work, right? And I think, if you can be as close to ground truth as possible with the AI, then, incredible, right?
Absolutely. I just did a story on another podcast I do called Silicon Scoop, where AI is now translating animals speak, so they can start what the birds are saying. They don't quite have it down to vocabulary, but distressed, not distressed, happy, not happy. Same thing with pets. And so that technology is going to come along pretty good and be able to be implemented in something like your device. So it'll be able to now communicate at a higher level with the owner what the pet's trying to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I think, that type of AI combined with like health markers, right? So if you think about stress, we see that HRV is elevated, right? Like, if you then see that, and you also can have some kind of AI that can listen to the sound that the dog makes, the crying or the coughing or the barking, and kind of explain what the combination of those two data points mean in sync, then, you probably got the holy grail, right? And I think that's kind of what we're alluding to. It's like, okay, can we combine real-time health data and markers with image recognition, with self-assessment, AI tools, with all these different things. And I think there's a lot of stuff, actually, there's a lot of ways to kind of create the holy trinity of at-home diagnosis or triaging, where you can truly understand status quo of your pet's health and what they're trying to tell you. Like, and that was really how I started. I was like, what is my dog like? I know he's anxious, but it's also like, what can I do about it? Okay, I'll bring him along, obviously, but like, what's my other alternatives if I can't bring him along? If I go to a restaurant where they just don't allow dogs, and you know, and that was the case when I lived in Singapore. You couldn't bring your dog anywhere. It was like, like even at outdoor places where you have an outdoor seating, it's like, dogs are not allowed. It's like, why? We're outdoors, right? Like, come on. But that there are rules and regulations in Singapore. One must follow them.
Well, there's rules and regulations everywhere. I hosted an event last night, and there was one situation where the person wanted to bring a pet in. Unbeknownst to me, we were at a tavern which served food and whatnot, and they didn't have the right documentation to prove, so they could not let them in. So it's just one of those things. You have to have the documentation that says it's a service animal or whatever, because Health Canada says, guess what? This is a place that serves food. We can't have pets running around.
Yeah. It's different in Spain. In Spain, you can bring them anywhere. Like, they're like, it's different. It's different.
Yeah. And I've seen them in Starbucks and a few other places. So I guess it depends how you prepare the food versus this. And I think people loosely interpret those rules. So absolutely, the rules are different and you have to follow them. And it is unfortunate, but it is what it is. I mean, it's not unfortunate you have to follow them, because rules are there to structure our society. So this has been great, and I'm sure our listeners want to find out more about you and MyPetGo. Where can they go?
Well, I'm not the most social person, on the World Wide Web, I should say. If you meet me, I'm happy to have a drink with you. But you can find me on LinkedIn. That's, I guess, the platform that I do use. And I think it's starting to get a little bit too Facebooky with a lot of weird stuff now. But especially with all the Trump and Musk and his salute the other day and everything else, there's a lot of it's getting very opinionated. But I think, to connect with other professionals and to source partnerships and deals and stuff, it is still the place. It's still the mecca for that. And so I'm there. Just search Richard Nilsson, MyPetGo, you'll find me. So you can connect with me if you want to ask me any questions about hardware, what not to do, pitfalls. Happy to help anybody, happy to give back. If you need help with advice on anything else, entrepreneurship, happy to help as well. So you can reach out there. If you want to go to MyPetGo, we don't have the sexiest website at the moment, but mypetgo.com. You can read up there. There is a new one launching soon. That's why I say it's not the sexiest. It's been there a while. It's a little bit outdated, I would say. It's an old application on it. Just launched a new one. But yeah, that's probably the two places. You find me there, and don't be a stranger. If you want to talk, I'm usually always I always try to give people time.
It's been great chatting with you, and I'll just kind of end with this kind of thought, because you've talked about, Trump and the politics going on LinkedIn and whatnot. And I always found it funny when companies need to take sides in any political or hot topic in any way, shape, or form. Because unless it's you or directly affects you as a company, why do you need to weigh in on these divisive topics? Because I think it was Michael Jordan who said it best, Republicans buy shoes too. Why would I? It's hard enough to get customers. Why would I alienate such a high percentage of the population by sharing my political views or a company's political views, or taking a stand versus one politician or other, or a religion or another? Like, why would you do that? It makes no sense from a business point of view. So keep your that personal information out of your business, because why would you, it's hard enough to get customers. Why would you make it even harder and limit that pool?
Agree. Well,
So
yeah,
they-
he's a wise man, Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Really good businessman, actually. Really good entrepreneur.
Yeah, and it just always strikes me as like, why do this? Like, I understand. I understand you don't like this politician or you don't like that politician, but if you bring it into business, you're dividing your customers up and you're doing a disservice to your business. So do your best to not bring that forward. I really appreciate you taking the time today to talk to me, Richard, and I loved learning all about MyPetGo.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
And for those listening, all the links he mentioned will be in the show notes on the podcast. So just click on that and the links will be there. Thanks, everyone.
This has been Startup Talk, Toronto's startup podcast. For more exclusive content, the episode vault, and to be part of TorontoStarts community, visit TorontoStarts.com. Get your name on the newsletter mailing list and check out our upcoming events. For more episodes, subscribe now. And please recognize the time and work behind the scenes put into connecting you with the biggest visionaries, entrepreneurs, and innovators in Toronto by leaving a 5-star review. Join us for more next episode from Toronto's most active entrepreneur and startup community on Startup Talk.